Yo, what's up, guys? Kalo here. I have a deck list for you guys today, but before I get into it, I just want to thank everyone for subbing. I've reached 100. I've actually reached 100 subs sometime last week or a week before. I'm at 107 or 106 now. But I seriously do want to. I do appreciate it, and I want to thank everyone. I kind of want to do a contest and give away a prize card. I don't know what I want to give away yet, but like, I'm not a partner. I don't partner. I don't plan on becoming a partner or anything. I just do this because I want to get my ideas out there, and I want to help the community and hear feedback from you guys. So, like I said, I just want to thank everyone for subbing and for staying sub. But I get onto the deck list. Today's deck is a Chaos Stun deck, which I've posted a lot of these before, but this one is really heavy trap, and this is probably the most consistent and most competitive deck that I've posted as far as a Chaos Stun deck goes. So I'll get straight into it, and I'll try to explain my card choices best I can. So with the obvious boss monsters, you're still playing 1 BLS and 2 Chaos Sorcerers. One thing right here is I do not play a Caius. Caius is one of the best cards in my opinion. I play him in almost every Chaos deck, but with this deck, it's just the main purpose is to 1-for-1 your opponent and plus when you can, and control the board, control the game, and it has to be as consistent as possible. And Caius ruins the consistency of your deck at times, because there's some times where it's just like your whole goal is to protect your monsters. If they have a big monster, you're likely to have one of these, but your traps should handle everything. So there really isn't a need for Caius, because if you have a dead card in your hand, it's just gonna sit there and you're gonna lose. So the overall goal of this deck is to be as consistent as possible and as control based as possible. So that's why I did not elect to run Caius. It's just those 3 boss monsters. Another thing that's different from my other builds, I'm only running 2 copies of Dialk. In Chaos deck, I feel like you should run 3 in almost everything. In almost every Chaos deck. The reason I decided to bump it to 2 is because I was finding drawing multiple copies of this card, especially early game, is really frustrating, because it forces you to try and get its mill effect off to banish a card from your top deck. And you normally banish a magic or trap because you have a really low monster count, for a Chaos deck at least. So I bumped this down to 2 because it's good to recycle. It's good to recycle your cards late game, so you don't want to see this really early, and it's good to recycle some useful cards. But Dialk, it's a good engine. I think 2 is the perfect number in this deck. 3 is definitely overdoing it. Onto the stun cards. I'm playing 2 copies of Thunder King. It loses to Insectors and everything, but it's still one of the best first turn plays you can do, and one of the best first turn plays this deck can do. And it seriously shuts down heroes, which is gaining in popularity really quickly. So I think Thunder King is a very good choice. The reason I only run 2 and not 3 is because I don't want to conflict it with my dualities, since I do max out on duality in this deck, just to help with that overall consistency. So Thunder King is very good at 2. The next stun card, I'm running 2 copies of Doomcow. I can't even explain how good this card is right now. Everything is effect based, and it just forces out so many things. It forces out effect bailers. It just shuts so many monster plays off for your opponent going off. I don't know, Doomcow is just really good. Before I get into the other monsters, I just want to point out I don't run tour guides because I don't have them. But even if you do have them and you're considering playing the deck like this, I honestly, in all honesty, as good as tour guide is, I wouldn't run it, because it loses to Veiler and it loses to Maxi, and it just hurts your consistency. Your whole point of your monsters is to control your opponent, and it's to get a big monster on the field, protect it as long as you can, and hurt your opponent and stop your opponent from going off. Tour Guide doesn't do that at all. All it does is let you go into Exceeds, which gives your deck a little bit more speed, but like I said, it loses to Veiler. None of my monsters, except for the boss monsters, lose to Veiler. Almost none of them. So, Tour Guide, I really don't feel like it's necessary in this deck. You can run it if you want to, since most people like Tour Guide, but I really feel like it's just not needed. Then my last pair card is Breaker. Breaker is just extremely good right now, because anyone that's been playing lately can kind of notice that backrows are definitely starting to make a comeback. Even with heavy and 3 MSTs, people are setting a lot of backrows. You have decks like Dark Roads, you have decks like Heroes and Dino Rabbits. They all set multiple backrows. So Breaker is just really good. It does lose a skill drain, but I mean, if they're forced to flip a skill drain on your Breaker, then you should have no problem getting rid of it later with a MST or something. It's just good for baiting out those warnings, and it's good for plussing. It's really good to attack over something smaller than it, and then pop a back row, and you just +2 in that turn. So Breaker is just a really strong card, and it's definitely underused right now. It should be used in a lot of stun decks. Now for the one-ofs. One copy of Cyber Dragon. Normally I would play this 2, but like I said, the whole point of this deck, you play it whereas you protect your one monster for as long as you can. So with all this control, you really don't need 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. You're just going to special summon it when they do finally get over your monster, and hopefully it's something that you can get over just by attacking. Plus Chimera Tech's still a good card too, so yeah. But just 1 copy of Cyber Dragon. 1 copy of DD Crow because it's a 1 card out to a lot of things. You can set it and let him attack into it, or you can summon and attack and remove problematic cards. So DD Warrior Lady is really good at 1. Gale, and to be honest, is the only tuner that I have, and I don't run. I don't really make synchros or anything. This is just a 1 card out to anything 2600 or less. So it's very, very strong card, and it's just a really good card to disrupt your opponent's plays and everything. Like I said, I wasn't running any tuners, which means I don't run any effect failures. Doom Cows are pretty good substitute for effect failure. The reason I don't is just because this deck is so 1-for-1 oriented that you don't want to neg yourself with an effect failure. You really need to be cautious with your card advantage in this deck, since it's a really slow deck. It's meant to slow your opponent down. I don't want to give up that neg 1 just to stop your opponent's play when my trap can do that with a 1-for-1. So that's why I don't run effect failures in this deck. 1 copy of Spirit Reaper, and this card I've considered running 2 because this card just gets in. It sits there all day, but with the amount of back row you have to support this card, you just poke your opponent all day, and your opponent ends up with no hand because you have Deep Prisons, Bottomlesses, Mirror Forces. It's just so much cards to protect this card, and it forces a lot of funny plays. Like they're forced to Mirror Force this. I would take a Mirror Force for Spirit Reaper any day, to be honest. So yeah, Spirit Reaper definitely gets in. 1 honest for really obvious reasons. You run a lot of lights, so yeah. I don't run Sangan to search any of those lower monsters out, just because I want a card that's going to disrupt your opponent or stop your opponent from going off. And Sangan I don't like Sangan. I don't know, not in this deck. And my last monster is Gores. Even though I do play a lot of back row, if they get that heavy storm off, or if they get that Insector swipe off, you need that Gores. The best thing about playing Gores in this deck, although it can be inconsistent at sometimes, is that your opponent will never see it coming with the amount of back row that you set. So if they do happen to run through all your back row, and you drop a Gores, chances are they're really not going to have an out to it after that, because you've been controlling them and 1-for-1ing them this whole game. So yeah, and don't forget that their token is a light, so you can also honest with token. So yeah, that's the monster count. It's 17 monsters, and it's very good. I wouldn't change the monster count at all. Maybe plus or minus one monster, but you get good ratios with this deck, and you see monsters that you want to see very often. So yeah. For the spells, I play in Allure of Darkness for obvious reasons again. The staples, Monster Reborn, Dark Hole. I don't play Heavy Storm due to the heavy amount of back row. So the substitute, I play 3 copies of MST, and it works very well. It's just really good. If your opponent's sides or mains decrease, you definitely need these because of that trap heavy base. Skill Drain doesn't really hurt this deck too much because you have your Doom Cows, you have your Thunder Kings, and all of those effects activate off the field. So same with DD Warrior Lady. And even if you need, worst case scenario, they have Skill Drain on the field, and they have like a Lagia or something, you can still summon BLS and beat over it with that Skill Drain. I don't know. I'm just saying things randomly. But you have big monsters that can just disrupt plays too. So there's really no need for a heavy storm, but 3 MSTs is a good substitute for that lack of heavy storm. And don't forget your breakers. Your breakers are also, you have total of like 5 cards that disrupt back row plays. So yeah. Next up, 3 copies of duality. Just for that consistency, you really need to see your pieces and go through your deck. It is a 41 card deck, which is a little weird, but 41 is my number. So this makes it a 38 card deck. 1 Book of Moon, just because it disrupts your opponent's plays, and it's good to use offensively. If you have like lances and stuff, you could definitely run lance over this. Lance is probably a little better right now. It's definitely more popular. I don't have any of them, so Book of Moon is a good card. And 1 copy of Smashing Ground, just a tech card. It's a good 1-for-1. It's just an easy out to a lot of your opponent's plays. So that's it for the spells. Onto the traps. So I have 2 copies of Solemn Warning. Oh, excuse me. And I don't know you. Okay. So I have 2 copies of Solemn Warning and 1 Solemn Judgment. Very obvious reasons there. You would question maybe the life point cost with Gores, but you won't see these every game. So, Gores is pretty much always live if you run out of back rows. 1 Mirror Force and 2 Torrentials for field clearing, just in case your opponent overextends. You can take advantage of that. But at the very least, it's a good 1-for-1. 2 copies of Bottomless. Bottomless has been declining in play lately, but with the popularity of Dark Worlds and E-Heroes ever since that last YCS, and now Chaos Dragons too, Bottomless is just a very good card. It's a 1-for-1, possibly more if they go Dino Rabbit. I mean, if they go Rabbit into like 2 dinos. So Bottomless is a very good card at 2. 3 copies of Deep Prison. This card it fits so well with the theme of the deck, which is to disrupt your opponent's plays by removing cards. Removing Grapha is just boss. Just really good removal. 1 Tech Compulse. A lot of people I've been trying it, and I've actually been liking it because it gets rid of problematic exceeds, and it disrupts a lot of plays. So the good thing about Compulse is it's chainable. So yeah. And the last card is 1 Starlight Road. I've been considering bumping this up to 2, but for now I'm keeping it at 1, and it's been working pretty good for me. You just want to see this because if your opponent knows that you're playing Starlight Road, they're going to be really cautious about heavy storming. But even if you don't see it, don't be afraid to set 4, because your opponent's going to read a Starlight Road if you set 4. Your only player that would heavy storm a 4 or 5 back row field is a bad player. So hopefully you're not playing a bad player. But Starlight Road is it's really good for keeping your back row safe. So that's it for the deck, guys. Like I said, it's definitely a lot different from my playstyle because normally I run a lot of monsters and I just kind of let my opponent go off and then I disrupt them after they go off. This is meant to control your opponent the whole time and make sure that your opponent doesn't get an advantage on you. So yeah, but that's it for now, and until next time, I guess I'll see you guys later. Peace out.